everyone, I'm Lau, and this video is very long overdue. I've been trying to do it for quite some time now. At first I had a few technical issues, then I didn't have the time, but I'm doing it now. I will try to do it all in one sitting. Hopefully I'll be able to finish. So let's just dive in. This is for Lucrecia Borgia. This is a few clarifications about language and also Argentinian culture at the time. The movie, of course, is a parody of the life of Lucrecia Borgia. It stars Olinda Bozán, who was already in her 50-something when she's supposed to be like 13 or 14 years old. That is the first hint that this is going to be a fun movie. And so there are just a few clarifications before we begin. This copy is probably the best copy that exists. This is the one that the INCA, which is the National Institute of Cinema and Audiovisual Arts here in Argentina, they turned digital. So this is the best copy they had. Hopefully one day someone will develop some kind of project to restore these movies and, change the audio and, the frames, and maybe they'll be able to track down other copies and fill in a few missing sections that exist. In some cases, it's very obvious that there's something missing. In some others, it's not so much. But, doing the captions, I realized that there are missing jokes. And probably that's why, that part of the film is gone. And also about the audio, sometimes it's not very good. It does have a lot of white noise. I didn't want it to change it because the few times when I tried to temper with stuff that has really bad white noise, it ends up sounding very robotic because the software that I have is not very good. And so hopefully, again, one day someone will be able to restore them. And because of that, there are a few phrases that I'm not entirely sure they say what they say. So I just put a caption for what I can hear them say, and I will let you know just in case. And I think those are the most of the clarifications, so let's just begin. So in here, Salmar Gueñol, he's the narrator, or at least like the host of this fake documentary, I guess. He's supposed to be, as they say, the Atalaya narrator for the BBC. Atalaya is actually a word that means watchtower, but in this case, when referring to a person, it means like the main focus of the principal in that field, in this case of the BBC. But another note is that he's faking an accent because anything that was done by the BBC at the time was going to be dubbed in Spain. So he's doing this kind of Spanish accent, but at the same time, he's using a type of voice that was used in this kind of, like the news and stuff like that, which I can only say that is similar to the transatlantic accent that people in the States used to have in movies. That kind of accent that is really embedded on the time, but at the same time people didn't speak like that at the time. It's a fake accent. So he's doing that and pretending to be Spanish, pretending to dub an Englishman. So the first lunfardo word that we find in this movie is rana. Rana in Spanish means frog, but in here, as I translated, is hog. This kind of person that is kind of deceiving and mischievous and kind of, always trying to get something for themselves. And so that is lunfardo. It means frog as well, but in this case, it's a hog. Bárbara. This was really hard for me to translate, and I left it in oh my, because I think it's the only one that encapsulates the three meanings the word bárbaro or bárbara has in Spanish. So the first meaning is bárbaro, which is barbaric or barbarian, something that is, horrific and really violent, and I think maybe savage at some point. And so, you can guess that she is a princess. She's not supposed to kiss a man like that. So we could agree that she is barbaric in a certain way. But the second meaning of Bárbara is something that is amazing or is great or, the best thing ever. So, of course, she will call herself that she's great and she's amazing. So she uses Barbara in that meaning as well. And the third meaning for Barbara, or Barbaro in this case, is something unbelievable. When someone tells an anecdote of some weird thing that happened, we say, "Oh, qué bárbaro." It's something that goes, beyond any kind of comprehension. And again, it applies. I think the three meanings apply. So there is, as far as I know, not an English word that could encapsulate all of that. So I left it in "oh my." I think it's the most appropriate one. These are two, she calls him several pet names or endearing terms. Chuchi is very common here in Argentina. They still use it today. According to what I found in Lunfardo, Chuchi is kind of a coquette. They care about their appearance and they try to be soft and stuff like that. However, I have the theory that Chuchi maybe comes from chucheria. Chucheria in Spanish from Spain and in Mexico today is used for a snack, like a candy or something that you eat that is savory for the time. So I think it fits with, calling your partner with that. And in Argentina, we use chucheria for a knick-knack, something that you buy because it's nice, it's cute, not necessarily because it's useful. So do with that as you wish. The second endearing term is ñato. Ñato is an Argentinian word, and it refers to a nose, because the word for nose is ñata. Of course, we use nariz as well, which is nose, but the lunfardo is ñata or ñato. So someone that has a very prominent nose will have this nickname, whether they like it or not. Well, we have the guards here. And the first word is mostacholi. Mostacholi is actually a nickname that they give to this other guard that has a very prominent mustache, because it comes from the word mostacho, which is another word that we use for mustache. We also have the Spanish word that is bigote, but mostacho is usually for a very big, thick mustache. And so since this soldier has that one, they call him mostacholi. Guarda. I really like this word because we use it with both meanings. It's one word that is used in both languages, Spanish and Italian, and they mean different things in both languages. Guarda in Spanish means to save or to keep something, like, keep this on your wallet, save this on your desk, something like that. But in Italian, it means look out, be careful. So when an Argentinian screams in the middle of the street, guarda, is because something is going to happen and he's, telling everybody, look out. But we also use it as guardar, which is to save something somewhere. The first time I translated the movie, I made a mistake because géneros is a word that we use for gender and we use for genre and also for fabric. In this case, fabric doesn't apply, but, at first I was like, gender, this is a movie from 1947. I think this is too advanced for that time. So it's genres, like, I like rock music and I like genres. Something that happens in a few Argentinian movies, quite a few of them, is that they don't use a proper Spanish, so to speak. Of course, we speak Lunfardo, we speak Argentinian, we have our phrases and our sentences. However, they make some grammar mistakes that kind of get my attention, and apuñaleados is one of them. The right word is apuñalados, but she says apuñaleados, which is not the right way to say it. It's not something that nobody will understand what you're saying. We do get it. It's kind of like the way someone that doesn't have a proper education will say it, and considering that thinking that she is a princess and all, she should speak better. So I don't know if this was in script on purpose. I don't know if it was a mistake by Olinda Bozán. I don't know if it's just the way that maybe the RAE, which is the Royal Academy of Spanish Language from Spain, they didn't have such strict rules at the time, maybe. I don't know. It happens quite sometimes, not just on this movie, but in other movies as well. Even movies that are not comedies. Even, dramas and stuff like that, they change a few things. For instance, in Spanish, whenever we say, my friend and I, it's always you put yourself at the end of the sentence, as a courtesy. So you say mi amigo y yo, so my friend and I. And in more than one movie, they say yo y mi amigo, which again is not impossible to understand, but it's not like the right way to say it. As I said, it's a courtesy, but in this case, it's a verb that wasn't properly conjugated. So I don't know, I'm confused. I don't know if it was on purpose, if it was a mistake, I don't know, but it happened. Spring runs through my veins. Actually, she says bouche. Bouche is like it bubbles when you put water to boil and it's boiling, and those bubbles that come out of heat, that is bouchir. Something that is bouchendo. So bouche, it means, she has hot blood and it's bubbling through her veins. But I didn't know if bubbling through her veins was going to be understood in English, so I changed it to run through my veins. With subtitles in English, this one is more like my own curiosity. As again, this movie is from 1947. We know that spicy movies exist since the dawn of time in cinema, we know. But were they being translated at the time? It wasn't necessary to have someone translate it to another language. I wonder, if any of you knows that in the time they did translated movies like that. Very interesting. Now we have all the guards, and they are mixing Spanish and English, like in this case, which it says enhorabuena. The congratulation term in Spanish is enhorabuena, which means in good hour, but they put half Spanish, half Italian, so enhorabuena. So it's still congratulations. Bravo Mostacholi, again, Mostacholi, the nickname for the soldier. Hay parte la América. I don't know if I got it right, because I don't speak Italian. I understand it because I live in Argentina and we have a lot of borrowed words from Italian. But I don't know if I wrote it right. In this case, to make yourself the America, or to go to America was, reaching the end goal. So it's in that context, he's going somewhere better. In this case, with Lucrecia. Bueno, grazie tanti. Thank you very much. No somos nada. No somos nada means literally we are nothing. And this is a very common phrase when speaking about a sudden death, something that we weren't expecting, like an accident or after a condition. It's in line with, dust to dust, ashes to ashes kind of thing, like we are ephemeris, so to speak, so we are nothing, we're nothing but dust in the wind kind of thing. So it's very common and still used today. Basta para mí. This one was fun because it does make sense in English to say it like that. However, it's not so much what she says, it's how she says it. Because whenever we play a few games, for instance, Tutti Frutti, which is something that you choose a letter and then you have to complete a series of columns, with fruits, animals and such. When someone finishes that game, we'll say basta para mí, basta para todos. Enough for me, enough for everybody. So she's using the same melody to say it as if it's a game. So everybody had their times, and now it's her time. Faccia. Faccia is a word that comes from Italian. It comes from faccia, which means face, but for us, faccia is your look, the way you're dressed, the way you're wearing your makeup, your hair, and something. If you have a buena faccia, it means a good look, or en esas fachas, it means looking like that. So now you know. This is Editing Laura adding that azafata is actually an ancient word. It stopped being used in Spanish language since the Middle Ages, and it comes from the Muslim word azafat, which was a type of basket that, those aristocratic ladies who had servants had that kind of basket to have threads and needle and all of that. So azafata is not just a joke, but it's also historical accurate. No te lo voy a comer. Now, I did translate it as I'm not going to eat it. It should have been I'm not going to eat him, but I already made that mistake. But actually, the way she says it is more like I'm not going to eat it away from you. El no te lo voy a comer is kind of a reflection on the verb. I'm not going to eat it away from you. I don't know if that makes sense. It makes sense to me. It makes sense in my head, which is what matters. Cromo. Cromo is a word that is not so much used at this time. Back in the day, and I mean when I was little and when my mom and my aunts were little, cromo is kind of like a sticker or a small image of something, and given that she has the pendant with the portrait of Manfredo, she means like this little sticker or like the ones you collect in an album. So I thought it was important to clarify because it's not longer used. We use figurita ahora or figura, but it's a nice word. Capicua. Capicua is a word that we use. Is for a palindrome, but is when the palindrome is composed by numbers. For instance, 222, 333, that kind of thing. That you can read it the same from the end to the beginning. So palindrome is for words. We don't have the word palindromo. Capicua is for numbers. It's a fun word to say. Maybe that's why they use it instead of palindrome. Cierre relámpago, the lightning zippers. Back in the 50s, I think, this idea that the zipper was as fast as lightning. I don't know if it was a brand or not, or it was just the slogan for the zippers. But of course, this is a joke. So she's saying, when are zippers going to be invented? Well, in case you didn't notice, EFA is the producer that made this movie, and I'm pretty sure that they used this on the trailer because otherwise, why put it on? So EFA presents Lucrecia Borgia. More Italian here, Attenti mascalzone, which is listen up, you idiots. And this one, I think it was supposed to be a joke, but maybe they didn't quite know what Sericarius was. Because they said the caption says firm the Sericarius. I'm pretty sure they wrote it down as some kind of wordplay because it sounds like Sericarius or those of serious face, but actually Sericarius is someone that works the silk. So I did try to find it because maybe it's Italian for something, but it's something that works silk. So I think it's mostly play on sericarios, which will be, those of serious face. E cominciamo is and so we begin, or let's begin. Messinos. This is my favorite joke on the movie because it cannot be translated to English as far as I know. So we are talking with this young man or child that comes from Messina, and the people that come from Messina are called Messinos, and they are talking about this volcanic eruption that happened, and he's one of the 7 Messinos that survived. Now in Spanish we have the word siete Messinos, and siete Messinos is used for babies that are born at 7 months of pregnancy. So for preterm babies, it's used siete Messinos, sometimes ocho Messinos. So the entire joke goes around it because he's a siete Messino. He's a preterm baby, and that's why he says, she says that he has to grow up and he needs to develop more. So yes, I think English doesn't have a word for that. They would just say, preterm, and that's it. But we have siete Messinos to say that it was born at 7 months. Well, here we have Piero dell'Acqua. Piero dell'Acqua, in case you didn't know, I guess you do, because it's a very common term, but dell'Acqua means from water. And she doesn't call him dell'Acqua later. She keeps calling him del agua, which is the Spanish for that. So that's why he's sympathetic from the water. And the joke later is that he's very dry, coming from the water, he's very dry. But it's curious that she chose not to, well, maybe it was in the script that she keeps calling him Del Agua instead of Del Agua. I don't know, decisions. Aguinaldo. I don't know if this exists in other countries. I'm pretty sure that it does in Latin America, but I don't know in English-speaking countries or other languages. Aguinaldo is 2 payments in the year. They are kind of, I don't remember if it's half your income. It's kind of like a bonus payment. They give you somewhere in winter for us, and then close to the holidays for Christmas and stuff like that. So it's like, well, a bonus payment, one more salary that you have, into payments. So just clarifying that in case nobody knows. This is another one of my favorite jokes. It's talking about San Antonio de Padua. San Antonio de Padua is actually a Portuguese saint, and for whatever reason has been linked to the idea of single ladies that want to get married. They will pray to San Antonio and he will find them a match. And in cases it doesn't work, what you have to do is to grab your image of San Antonio, whatever it is, and hang it upside down. So you have to put him, face down, head down actually. And after that he's going to send someone to you. So probably Lucrecia not only has done that many times, but probably curse him as well, because she says, "Forgive me, San Antonio, leave everything behind." This is just a small thing that I really like to see. It's not so much about linguistics, but something I really like. I appreciate that all of them are helping Olinda Bolzan to sit down on the stairs. They're not helping Lucrecia, they're helping Olinda, because she's probably the eldest in this cast. So in here they're all talking about Juan. The first word that Cesar uses is arrogante, which means arrogant. I changed it to superb. Arrogante means 2 things. It can be good and bad because it's arrogant. But in Spanish we use it, for something good. In this case, an arrogant knight or gentleman, it says. It means someone that imposes respect, that is kind of very proudful, so to speak, but in a good way. So, he's quite a catch in this case. Nobilissima cuna, it means noble crib. So when someone comes, from a very wealthy family with a long history, they come from noble crib. I wasn't entirely sure if the phrase was going to be understood in English. That's why I changed it from the most noble family. But we refer to the crib because it was born with lots of privilege. Another word that we use, another phrase that we use is was born with a silver spoon in their mouth. That is another way to say it. Se desviven. Angeles says that the ladies of court, Milan's court, they will die for him. That's what I put in the subtitles. However, she uses the word desviven. Desvivir, if I want to translate it the way it is, it will be to overlive, or, to be fair, is more likely unalive, which is kind of fun because it's actually the opposite. Whenever in Spanish we use desvivir, it means you go beyond expectations to try to please someone. The most common example would be parents desviviéndose for their children. They want to give them everything they deserve, and they want to go up and beyond for that. So I had to change it, but that's actually what she says in this case. Salame. This word is still being used today. We use it quite some time. It's from Lunfardo. I mean, of course, it means salami, of course, for the food. But in Lunfardo, it's what internet calls now a Chad. This guy that thinks himself to be the best of the best, but is actually an idiot. So whenever an Argentinian says salame to someone, is someone who thinks themselves to be the next best thing, but they're not, and they're stupid actually. Just a quick clarification, she makes a mistake, she starts to mix up all the titles. It's not that I wasn't paying attention. I mean, I'm writing down exactly what she says. She confused everything, all the titles, and it's not me, just to clarify. Pomarola, I don't know if you know this, it's a type of tomato sauce for, the pasta. Just in case nobody knows about Italian sauces, Pomarola is one of them. So of course that is not his title, but it's funny. Well, this is one of those phrases that I've told you that I try to slow down and try to hear better. I think she says, delante de la venia a Lucrecia, which means ahead you may salute Lucrecia. The venia is actually a type of salute. The most common one would be, kind of the military thing, this one. It's a sign of respect, and you will hear here and there the servants will be con su venia. It means with your permission or at your signal. So, well, in this case, it's a sign of respect because he's arriving to town and he will say hello to Lucrecia. I think that's what this woman is yelling. Makes sense somehow, and so I left it as that. Well, one of the great beauties of our epoch, that's what he says in Spanish. I changed it to one of the greatest beauties of our time because that is more common in English, but he actually says epoch. That's why, yes, but from which epoch? Like saying which historical time. This one, another one of my favorite jokes. As we know, in Spanish, we use genders for nouns and adjectives. Someone that comes from Milan is a Milanese, and a woman would be a Milanesa. However, there's also a very popular dish that is called Milanesa. It's just a piece of meat, a tender piece of meat, very thin, that gets soaked in egg yolk, and then you put some breadcrumbs and fry it. Sometimes you can do it on the oven as well if you don't want to have it fried. It's very popular here in Argentina, and everybody loves milanesas. So of course, when she asked for the milanesas, you mean the people, the women that come from Milan, she's also thinking about the milanesas. And the answer is las milanesas vienen a caballo. The Milanese women come in horses, but in this case, las milanesas, if we think of the food, milanesa a caballo, it means that the milanesa, which is this piece of meat that I just told you, is with French fries and a fried egg on top. That is a milanesa a caballo. And given that she's been dieting for 3 days, she's really hungry and she forgot about Milanese women and she's thinking of milanesas a caballo, which is a very valid option. And also the question, ¿y cómo vienen? It doesn't just mean and how are they coming. We use it also when preparing food, cómo viene ese asado, cómo viene esa milanesa, cómo vienen las empanadas. So everything is set up for her to be very hungry in this case. And that's why she's salivating so much, poor thing. Well, this is another of those instances where I'm not entirely sure this is what they say, because the thing I heard was mantos de circun. And I tried to Google it, I tried to find it, I couldn't find anything similar. My wild guess is those cloaks that are half a circle. Maybe that's what they mean. I'm not entirely sure. This is what is being said. I don't have access at all to the original script, so I don't know. So I guess it's that kind of cape or cloak that they will use, that is kind of like a semicircle. And also they later say, well, Marrakech saddles, that's what I hear, because they say monturas de marroquí. And actually when people works with leather here, we call it marroquinería. So maybe they mean, like the saddles are very worked on leather. I don't know if it was worn maybe in Marrakech, maybe, I'm not entirely sure. And then it says with pillows and silver, I guess, given that these are saddles for horses, in order to make the the rider more comfortable. It will have pillows, I guess. Again, I'm not entirely sure this is what they say. This is what I can hear for all the different attempts that I had while trying to decipher what it said. So whenever there's a strike, usually from workers or something, will say that they have fallen arms or laid down arms, like saying they're not working, they're not moving. So in this case, down wings, like saying the birds are not flying, they're on strike. I don't know if this is used elsewhere, but we do use it here quite some time. Well, in case you don't use the Spanish playing cards, the Page of Cups is a figure. It's the number 10 on the cards. Is the image that I'm sharing at this moment, and you can see that he does look like that. Condottiero. Condottiero was a title in Italy. It's kind of like the head of a militia, not necessarily an army, but a militia, and that's why it's important that this person is here. Again, I don't know if the name is well. I think I wrote down whatever I hear, but condottiero. Yeah, so it's a powerful position, and it's a dangerous position. Someone that could invade a place, I guess. Brigante. Brigante is kind of like scoundrel, so to speak, or someone that is not trustworthy. Well, this is Italian, not Spanish. I'm just clarifying in case you didn't know. Oh, and then Maquiavelo says el faccia bruta di tota. I'm not entirely sure if that is the right way to say it. Faccia bruta, it means of brute face. And di tota, I have no idea. I did try to Google if there was anything similar to that. I couldn't find it. But, it's basically, this idiot. What is he doing here, basically? Pavadas. Pavadas is a word that we use when something is nonsense or kind of stupid in a certain way. I don't know why we associate pavos, the bird, with something that is easy or borderline stupid, because we use pavadas, which means enough nonsense in this case. When something is, it's complicated, we will say no es moco de pavo, it's not Turkish booger. I don't know why. And also when talking about, the teenagers that are transitioning to the 20 years old, we say that this is the edad del pavo, the age of the turkey. I don't know why they, here in Argentina, we think of the turkeys as stupid birds. I don't know. Does anybody else does it? I'm not entirely sure, but it's part of our language at this moment. Garragor. I didn't know that this is actually a creature from, medieval times. Garragor is kind of like a wild boar with even more fangs. Kind of cool. I didn't know. I don't play video games because I do know by Googling that it is in a few video games, but I've learned something new. Well, avec un soignit, says him. So he's mixing French and Spanish. I don't know if it's all over Latin America or it's just here in Argentina, that whenever someone is going to sleep a little bit, we will say, se fue a echar un sueñito. He went to throw a little sleep. So, avec a sleepy, in this case, is like, it's going to have a little bit of sleep, a little nap. So in here, Maquiavelo is making fun of Piperi. He's trying to replicate the way the French speak. So he's saying, no es pata, no es pata, which is no es para tanto. It's not that big of a deal. It's not that much importance. But he's saying it in a way that kind of sounds French, but it's not French, obviously, because, he's replicating Piperi. Now, this is one of the instances that I'm not entirely sure if it's a mistake on the script or there's something missing, because the entire point was to put the condottiero to sleep. And in here, they're talking about putting the ambassador to sleep. So I don't know if there was a mistake they didn't notice when recording, or maybe there is a missing scene where they changed the plan and they decided that the ambassador needed to sleep. I don't know what happened. Maybe just a little mistake, something nobody noticed at the time. Well, this is another instance where I think there's something missing, because they're talking about him being sleepy, well, ragazzina, little one in this case, because he's saying about during the battle of, and he snores, but later she says, well, but I guess that you're not going to catch up to that now. So I guess that he continues the anecdote at some point, saying, maybe he was awake for 5 days or something like that. So I guess this is missing, and hopefully one day someone will find it. Bambino means child, or yes, baby, in that case. There's actually a funny story, if you know about some football, San Lorenzo had a technical director that is called Bambino Vieira. Bambino is a word that is being used as a name here in Argentina, not because it's a name, but because Italian people will come over and will say, who are you, your name, and it's like Bambino, when pointing at their babies. And the people here in immigration thought that Bambino was a name, so they would write it down as Bambino. So it happens, and it's just a little note of color for everybody. In here, I think there's another missing part, because she says how he was able to curve an iron bar with his bare hands, and actually she says media luna. Media luna is a word that we use for any half circle, but mostly for food as well. We have the media lunas, which are these half circles, or half moon, which is the proper translation, half moon. It's very sweet, and that's why he could curve an iron bar as a media luna, given the shape of a half a circle. And again, it's missing that part. Maledetto brigante, in this case, the bloody scoundrel, I guess. Brigante y traditore, so a scoundrel and a traitor. And in here, I guess this is a joke that is said on the time, because he says tough luck of Rome with the axes. The fact that he's talking about axes, or eje in Spanish, makes me think maybe something related to cars, like a race or something that happened in some race in Rome or something. I don't know, I'm not entirely sure. Most likely it's a joke that is kind of outdated at this moment. Se hermana. They're not talking about their sister. Hermanarse, or se hermana in this case, is to turn someone into your sibling. They just got Lucrecia married to this guy. He's part of the family. He's basically a brother to them. And, it's this kind of union, brotherhood kind of thing. Regia di Tane. Regia di Tane is that bunch of, delinquents, so to speak. I think it was actually castle of delinquents that he was saying. I googled this a very long time ago, but it's just a complaint. Disimular. Disimular is to pretend that nothing is going on. That's why he says just pretend, just pretend. It actually sounds better in Spanish because disimular is very specific. So they're pretending, we're not looking at you. We're looking at anything else out the window. So madrugar is to wake up very early. It doesn't, usually you will wake up like, 8 in the morning, but madrugar will be waking up at 5 in the morning or 4 in the morning. And so they're making fun of him because he's been sleeping for 5 days. So you're madrugando now. You're waking up early now. And I think they're funny. I don't know if it was intentional or not to call him Don Juan, because Don Juan Tenorio, of course, the famous lover, and he couldn't do it at the time. In here he says infundio. Infundio comes from infundado, which means something that is baseless. So a rumor, in this case I left it as rumor, but it's more like this baseless idea, who came up with that. And I've changed miserable, which is it's a mild insult in here for bastard. I think it makes a lot more sense. I don't know if miserable is used as an insult in English. I think not. That's why I had to switch it to an insult, which is bastard. because miserable in here is, someone that is not worth your time either. Well, in here I had to make a small adaptation because what they say is los hechos cantan, which means the facts sing. They don't speak for themselves, they sing. Just a little clarification in case you pick it up. Enjuagues, enjuagar is actually to rinse. When you're washing something, to rinse it over. We use it a lot for political stuff, the enjuague de manos, or to rinse your hands, try to, one hand washes the other, that kind of thing. We use it with that meaning. That's why I had to change it to your political games, because it's not a phrase that you use in English. Mala cara. Mala cara means bad face. In this case, it will be, that he's not necessarily like not graceful, but ungrateful, maybe in this case, or that he doesn't have the will to do something for them, so he has a bad face about it. It's really hard to explain what it means, but for us it makes sense. This movie is from 1947. I don't know how any kind of action was coordinated at the time, but the way that he uses the cloak and he pulls up the knife, that is a very gaucho thing to do. That is from us. I don't know how they used to fight in the 1500s in Italy at the time. No, 1400s back in Italy. But this is a very gaucho stance, so that is the joke in itself. Another of those instances where I'm not entirely sure if this is what they say. Marcos Kaplan says something which I hear, oi Chester, oi oi. I thought maybe it's a reference to some sort of a play, maybe, because oi is very common in British English. It's an expression. Maybe it's from there. Maybe he's saying something else that I'm not quite sure what it says. I'm not, I left it as this. If somebody hears something else, please let me know, because I have no idea what he's saying. Boleando. Boleando comes from bol. So here in Argentina, it's very common to see the gauchos with boleadoras. Boleadoras are actually a tool created by the natives. There are 3 stones that have been covered with leather, and they're all strung together with a rope, and it was used to hunt, especially, llamas and stuff like that. Mandatirulirula. I don't know if it's been used that much in school. I think I had to say it maybe a few times when I was little. It's a very common way to salute your teacher or the principal of your school. So, buenos días, señorita Mandarilulirula. So that's the entire joke. It's something very cultural of us. It was getting darker, so I had to turn on the light. But the following scene is yet another instance where I wasn't entirely sure that this is what they're saying. I hear the horse doesn't bite, it bites either way. So I'm not entirely sure if this is what he's saying. I don't know if he means, the piece that goes into the mouth of the horse, or maybe it's a term or a phrase that was used in horse races back in the day. I've never been in a horse race, especially not one in 1947, so I have no idea. But another possible explanation that I have is that sometimes, I don't know if it's an Argentinian thing or in Latin America as a whole, we use the word bite, which is morder, not just for a bite, but also when, let's say, concrete doesn't adhere itself to a surface. It's very common to say, el cemento no muerde. The cement is not biting. It means that it cannot adhere itself, to the wall or to the brick or something. So maybe it goes down that way, like saying, the horse is sleeping on the road. It doesn't grab itself properly from, with the terrain or something like that. Maybe it goes down like that. I'm not sure. It could be. Maybe they're saying something entirely different. But this is what I can hear. So I'm not 100% sure about what was going on. Well, if I'm not wrong, now we reached the point where Lucrecia is singing. Actually, that is a real song. I thought it was maybe composed or written for the film, but it's actually a traditional song. It's from Spain. I think it's a romance, and the lyric is pretty much that. It has been changed for the movie. It says something about the muscles that is not in the original lyrics. But what I found very interesting about it is that the entire song in itself, it speaks about a vampire. So when she says, I'm not going to open to that old bat, it's because it's actually a vampire that is going from one balcony to another, trying to, get some girl to open the doors for him. Cáscaras is in Spain, especially in romances from this time period. Is used kind of like heck or hell in this case. It actually means shell. Most likely the eggshell more than any other. So it's just an expression. I don't know if it's being used at this moment. In my country, it is not. Hermanucha. I don't know if it already happened before, but it's very common that when you speak to someone of your family or a friend, you will use ucho, ucha as a way to make it like an endearing term. It's like little sis or something like that. So hermanucha, but it's usually used, when someone feels down. That's why he says it now, and he hasn't said it before, because she's sad at this moment, so it's hermanucha. We would say, ¿por qué esa carucha? Why that face? So the ucho ucha is not just a way to say, little something, but also little sad something. Well, for those of you that are not very involved in soccer, especially not Argentinian soccer, Vélez and San Lorenzo are two football teams from the same area. They are rivals. That's why I don't know how the team was in this year, but if she's laughing, it's because it wasn't going to be a very good match. We have the proper names are Vélez Sarsfield y San Lorenzo de Almagro. Probably you know about San Lorenzo because Viggo Mortensen is from San Lorenzo, and the late Pope Francis was from San Lorenzo as well. So this is a double entender. They're not just talking about the historical figure, but actually about a football match. Well, besub me, the word in Spanish is besar or besame in this case, but she mixed it up with Vesubio, so besubiame. It doesn't really exist, it's just a wordplay. Give me the one from the stirrup. It's like in those movies, when a train is leaving and the sad couple is saying goodbye, in this case with a horse, so it fits with the stirrup as well. Tiempo al tiempo. So yes, it means everything at its time, but the literal way to say it would be give time to the time. I'm just clarifying in case someone reads the phrase and it's like, well, it's not exactly what it says, so just give time to the time and it will be solved by itself. Now this is something I will clarify in Spanish as well, because I was very confused at the time, because today we use the word ocurra, or the verb actually, ocurra, ocurrir, when you are thinking of something, when you came up with an idea. However, ocurra or ocurrir, it means something that is happening or that will happen. So for us, ideas don't just show up, they happen to us, and that's why we say se me ocurrió, it came to me. So in this case, he's saying not that Lucrecia will think to become a widow, but it's going to happen to her that she will become a widow. And I thought it was curious because at the time I was really confused, like why would she want to be a widow? But no, it's actually that's going to happen to her. It's not something that she will think about. Contagiar. Contagiar is to pass it on, something that is contagious, especially a condition in this case. She was replicating the accent of the narrator. That's why she's saying that she got contagious. She got carried away, as I put it in English. But it means to pass it on from one person to another. Grosso's history was a history handbook at the time. It was written, I think, about 2 or 3 years before the movie came out, so probably it was very popular at the time. Grandulón. Grandulón is a despective way to say someone that is a big boy. It's like, oh, you're too big for this. You're an idiot because you're not supposed to be like this. So they will use grandulón. Someone that is behaving like a child even though they're adults. Ficaos. That is not the proper word, but something that happens with Italian people is that they change a few sounds, with their accent. So the J, that is fijaos in Spanish, Spanish from Spain, this is a different way of conjugate verbs. They will change the J sound for a K. So instead of fijaos, they will say ficaos. And it's something I've noticed by watching other people speaking Spanish with an Italian accent. So the word is fijaos. And again, this is Spanish from Spain. That's why this usually this kind of verbs is no longer used in Latin America. We will say fíjese, porca miseria, or such a misery, or porca is actually like disgrace kind of thing. Such a disgrace. In this case, it would be. This is a joke that doesn't translate very well in English, because in English you use yolk is the center, what we call yema, and the other are the whites. But we say clara, which means clear. So the clara is clear for the egg whites, and the yolk is yema. So it doesn't really translate, but that's what they're saying. That's why she says it's much too clear and much too yolk. There's too much egg white and too much yolk as well. And dar corte. Dar corte means to pay attention to someone. In this case, we're speaking about a proper court. They are not giving you the time or the attention that you need to explain your case. Today it's not that much use, but it's usually like, nobody cares about you, nobody pays attention to you. Now, this joke, I don't get it. So he said S&S means a circle of the solitary navigant. But circolo, or círculo, in the three languages is written with a C. So I don't know why it came out. But later on, he speaks that, he says she says there are many of you, and he says only two. It's me and Vito Dumas. Vito Dumas was, according to my research, a sailor, sportsman from Argentina. He did swimming, boxing, and athleticism. He was the first solitary navigator that received the Slocum Award after 4 journeys, one of them around the world. So maybe it was because of Slocum Award, but they changed it to circle, and it didn't quite fit because, again, it should begin with a C, even in Italian, but I don't know. Rábida, is the name of the place, but in this case, I was enraged in this case. Well, if anybody recognizes this area, I know that it's part Italian and part French, for what I can hear. I tried to Google some phrases that I do understand. I couldn't find anything. I found a lot of things, but none of them was this area. So if anybody knows, I'll appreciate it. A dos pasos. When we say that something is very close, we will say that it's 2 pasos away. It's just two steps away from wherever you are. Encomiéndate a Dios. Encomiéndate a Dios can be translated as say your prayers, but it's actually commend yourself to God. Prepare yourself to meet God in this case. Now, this sounds very silly, I'm dead, but actually in theater is very common, and actually the key of the drama around it is in the order, because if you say estoy muerto, that usually plays more in a comedic role, I'm dead. But muerto soy is more dramatic and is used a lot in theater. It's not the first time that I see it like that, and it's supposed to be serious. It's not a joke. Infeliz. I don't know why we use the word infeliz, which means unhappy, when talking about someone that is stupid. Stupid or an idiot, as I translate in this case. It's very common to use it. I use it all the time. Well, with people that deserves it, of course. I don't know why we decided to use infeliz or unhappy as a symbol of people being idiot. The final joke, that is another one of my favorites. This is Alfonso d'Este. He is trying to get Lucrecia's attention and she's not turning back, so he uses the actress name, which is Olinda, and then she turns. So that is the final joke, and I really like it, and I wanted to explain in case you didn't realize that her name is Olinda Bozan and he was using her real name. So I hope you enjoy this. I think it's going to be quite a long video. I hope to narrow it down a little bit. And I'm working on the second movie. It's just that I had other things coming up, life gets in between. And I'll see you next time. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.